Okay, so now we're gonna solve these quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. Now, last semester you were just given the formula. You were told how to use it, so all you did, you just plug it in. But it actually comes from what idea? Completing the square. Now, the formula, the derivation of it is just dealing with letters, and it takes about. It involves fractions, and it takes about 10 to 15 minutes for us to go through it, and I don't want to use the time on that. But there's a video on Canvas if you want to see how the quadratic formula is derived. But do any of you remember what the quadratic formula is? Negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right. So remember, though, you have to have what kind of equation? Quadratic. So the general form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And as we go through this, you're going to write down what a is, what b is, what c is. So if you remember from last semester, that's what you did. Now, we're not going to spend too much time on this because you had it last semester. So I'm just going to do about a few problems. So you determine what A, B, and C are. So here's the, once you find A, B, and C, you just plug it into your formula. So here's the formula. The solutions of this quadratic equation will be x equals the opposite of B, negative B, opposite of B, plus or minus, remember that plus or minus? The square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All over. Not part of it, all over. All right? That's your quadratic formula. All right, now, to be able to use it, though, you have to have this in general form. So general form means you need what on the other side? 0. All right, so let's do number 1. So we're going to solve these by using the quadratic formula. Number 1. 6x squared equals 20 minus 19x. 6x squared equals 20 minus 19x. What do you do?
Move the 6x squared to this side.
Put it in general form. So he said move the 6x squared over. I wouldn't do that because then your a is negative. I prefer to have a being positive. So I would leave the x squared term where it is. I would move the others to the other side. So when I do that, and make sure it's in descending order. So descending means to go from largest to smallest, to descend, go down. So put the x squared first, put the x, and then your constant last. So when I do this, based on what I just said, put in descending order, and your constant is the last term. What would you have? 6x squared? Nope. Plus 19x minus 20 equals 0. Dave, if you're not careful, you'll be making some errors on a test. Okay, now, the next step, before you plug in chug, the next step is determine what A, B, and C are. And it's a very good idea to actually say A equals blank, B equals blank, C equals blank. So A is a coefficient of what? X squared. So what is the coefficient of x squared here? 6. So A is 6. B is the coefficient of x. What's the coefficient of x? 19. Positive 19. C is your constant. What is your constant? Negative 20. Not 20, negative 20. All right, and then you just take those numbers and you plug into your formula. All right, so here we go. X equal, listen to the words, x equal the opposite of B. Well, if B is 19, what's the opposite? Negative 19. Plus or minus the square root of. All right, now sometimes b is going to be negative. B in this case is positive, right? Regardless, though, always when you do this radicand, now in a little while, on Monday, we're going to call this radicand the discriminant. But don't worry about that just yet. But this radicand, remember the radicand is the number or the expression that's under the radical. So the radicand, when you rewrite those, put those in parentheses. It's going to help. So b squared, what is b in this case? 19. What do I do to it? Square it. Minus 4 times a in parentheses, 6, times c in parentheses. All that is being divided by 2 times a in parentheses. So that's where I'm at. So the first thing you do is just plug into your formula. That's all you do. Now the next step is to chug. Work with the radicand first. Now this radicand, Monday we're going to call it what instead? The discriminant. Okay, for right now just work with the radicand. All right. So equals negative 19 plus or minus the square root of, you need your calculator. What's 19 times 19 in your calculator? 361? All right, listen carefully to the next part. A negative times a positive times a negative is a positive. 4 times 6 times 20 in your calculator, what's that? Positive 480? Is that what y'all have? I'm just writing what someone told me. 480? All over 12. All right, so that's where I'm at. Okay? Still work with the radicand. Negative 19 plus or minus the square root of. What's 361 plus 480? It cannot be negative.
361 plus 480.
8 what? 41. All over what? 12. All right. Now, remember, am I going to get I? Am I going to get an imaginary number as the answer? No. So this is either rational or irrational, right? Okay. So it's rational if 841 is a perfect square. And all you got to do, guys, is just take the square root of 41 and see if it's a whole number. When you calculate, take the square root of 841, tell me if it is.
49. So
it's a whole number. So 841 is a perfect square because 29 times 29 is what? 841. All right, so then you're going to do this. You're going to say, all right, that's going to be negative 19 plus, you said plus or minus 29, you said? Over 12. So this is rational, right? You no longer have a square root. Just like we did earlier, since it's rational solutions, split it apart. So my first will be negative 19 what? Plus 29 over 12. My other one will be negative 19 what? Minus 29 all over what? 12. So that's where I'm at. And just use your calculator. What's negative 19 plus 29? 10. So that's 10 twelfths, which reduced is 5, 6. So there's one of your solutions. So one of my solutions is what rational number? 5, 6. All right, now the other. What's negative 19 and a negative 29? Negative 48 over 12, which is negative 4. So there's your other solution. And that's it. Plug and chug. Plug and chug. Just using quadratic formula. Let's do another one. So some of you last semester, remember that's always at the end of the course. So you maybe remember that. All right, number 2. we have 2x squared minus 7x equal 5. 2x squared minus 7x equal 5. All right. Now remember, you want to use quadratic formula. Not complete the square. Quadratic formula. So if I'm using quadratic formula, I've got to have what on the other side? 0. All right. So we're gonna put this in general form, put it in descending order. So tell me what the left-hand side would look like. Very good. 2x squared minus 7x minus 5 equal 0. Okay. Now be very careful when you tell me what A, B, and C are. Okay? What is A? 2. A is the coefficient of x squared, 2. What is B? All right, see, some of you would have said 7, and your whole answer would have been incorrect. It is negative 7, right? You've got to keep the sign. What is your constant? Negative 5. So you got to make sure before you go on and plug that you verified that you have A, B, and C correct. Because if either one of those is incorrect, then your answer is going to be wrong. Okay, so make sure you verify that those 3 things are correct. So before I go into the quadratic formula, are you sure that A, B, and C are correct? Okay. All right, so they are. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and write down the formula. X equal the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC. All that is being divided by 2A. And all you do is just plug right now. So X equals, this says the opposite of B. Well, what is B? Negative 7. What's the opposite of that?
7.
All right, so 7 plus or minus the square root of. Make sure you put everything in parentheses. B is what? Negative 7. What do I do to it? Squared. Now, before I go on, you see that B squared? That should never, even if you're using your calculator, B squared, when I squared that B, it should always be what kind of number? Positive. If it's negative, you did something wrong. B squared will always be positive. So you'll notice that when I square it, what's the negative 7 times the negative 7? Positive. Unless B is 0. Because what's 0 squared? 0. But it will be positive or 0. Never negative. Minus 4 times A in parentheses. What is A? 2. Times C in parentheses. What is that? All over 2 times A. And what's A? 2. Just like this. So notice you just plug. And the rest is just manipulating. Okay, work with the radicand, which is the discriminant. Okay, so I get 7 plus or minus the square root of. Well, what's negative 7 squared? All right, now listen. A negative times a positive times a negative is a positive. So plus 4 times 2 times 5? 40. All over what? 4. Still working with the radicand. What's 49 plus 40? 7 plus or minus the square root of 89 all over 4. All right, so that's where I'm at. Now, is 89 a perfect square? No. So then you got to ask yourself, all right, can I simplify the square root of 89? Meaning, is there a perfect square other than one that goes to 89? Sure. I mean, if you're not sure, here's what I would do. You know your perfect squares, right? Your perfect squares are 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, and so on, right? Okay, so here's what you do to determine if there's a perfect square that goes to 89 besides 1. 4. 89 divided by 4, is that a whole number? No. 89 divided by 16, is that a whole number? No. 89 divided by 25, is that a whole number? No. 89 divided by 36, is that a whole number? What's the next one? 49? 89 divided by 49, is that a whole number? And all you do is just go halfway to this number. All right? So don't go any further because half of 89 is less than 45. So you leave it like that. So is there a perfect square other than one that goes in 89? No. So you're done. There's your answer. That's it. All right. Now, if you want to, on my math lab, first of all, how many solutions are there? Two. On my math lab, you're going to have to separate your solutions. So you would say 7 plus square root of 89 over 4. Notice the whole thing's divided by 4, right? Not just square root of 89, but what else? 7. Make sure you extend this division. And what's the other one? That's it. There's your answer. Okay. Now in number one, my solutions were what kind of numbers? Rational, irrational? Rational. In number 2, my solutions are what kind of numbers? Irrational. So irrational solutions. Okay, let's look at number 3. Number 3. X squared plus 4x plus 29 equal 0. X squared plus 4x plus 29 equal 0. Is it in general form? Yes. So what's A? 1. What's B? 4. What's C? 29. All right. I'm going to write out the formula. So the more times you write the formula, it's easier it becomes to remember. So x equal the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, so let's plug now. X equal the opposite of b. What is b in this case? 4. Opposite of that is a what? Negative 4. Plus or minus the square root of, in parentheses, b, which is 4 squared, minus 4 times in parentheses a, which is 1, times in parentheses c, which is 29, all over 2 times a, which is 1. So notice all I did was just plug numbers into the formula. All right, now I'm going to simplify, I'm going to manipulate the radicand, the discriminant. And you're going to see why it's called the discriminant Monday. X equal negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared. Always positive with 0, that should never be negative. All right, a negative times a positive is a negative. So you're going to be subtracting. 4 times 1 times 29 on your calculator. What is it? 115? Okay. 116? All over what? 2. So it equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 100 all over 2. Now before I go on, I'm going to have rational, irrational, or imaginary. Imaginary. Okay. What's the square root of a negative 100? 10i. All right, so negative 4 plus or minus 10i all over 2. That's where I'm at. Okay. Now, you know that based on what you now see, that I expect you to go one step further. Because what do you know you can do? Yeah, all those 3 numbers are divisible by 2. So you see this right here? I'll go ahead and rewrite this. This, and this, they're all divisible by 2. So negative 4 divided by 2? Negative 2 plus or minus 10 divided by 2. Now, see, that's all divided by 1, right? Leave it like that. There's your answer. Because anything divided by 1 is what? Be careful. Anything divided by 1 is that thing. All right. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. So we're going to do one more like this Monday as well. What I want to do is give you the second part of that in class right now.